So I began last week's debate review with a rather stern and powerful phrase, "I am disappointed." I'm not entirely sure. I think I can say the same exact thing for this vice presidential debate, but I would say it in a different way and for different reasons. I'm disappointed, but not for what you might expect. I'm disappointed because that debate, in terms of polish and presentation, looked good, looked great. In fact, that debate was existing solely in comparison to the previous debate, the presidential debate, which was such a chaotic dumpster fire. But when something exists in comparison to another, and solely in comparison to another, so much so that it doesn't take it on its own character, you have a problem, because you can never understand that thing for what it is. So, for example, light and darkness are two polar opposites, right? But you understand light for what it does. It stands in contrast to darkness, but you understand what light does. Similarly, you understand darkness for what it does. It stands in contrast to light, but you understand darkness for what it does. These are still, while they are dual concepts, they still can stand on their own. I'm not entirely sure this debate can stand on its own, given the kind of, the contextualization that was placed around it. That's number one. But I'm disappointed primarily because this was more so a engagement in how to be the best rhetorician, as opposed to an engagement in how to speak the truth, how to speak it honestly, and how to actually provide for good governance. So instead of focusing on the principles of good governance, I have an icky feeling that both candidates, especially Kamala Harris, were focusing on the principles of rhetoric. Kamala Harris especially had this issue. Kamala Harris is a former attorney, and in law school, I read, they teach you how to argue a case, how to make something sound good and look good on paper. In fact, Cicero, one of the most brilliant lawyers in the history of any legal system, I would say, one of the most brilliant lawyers in history, he was very clear about how powerful rhetoric was in changing the mind, and he was very much against sophistry and everything like that. But if Cicero was the honest lawyer who was against sophistry, Kamala Harris is the dishonest attorney who used her training to try to eke every single bit of sympathy, every single bit of approbation, of hosannas that she could from the American public. Not because her arguments were actually good, but primarily because they sounded good. That's an issue. Let me give you an actual example. I don't have any clips because the debate just ended. I'm literally just doing the commentary right on the fly. But, for example, in the middle of the debate, where they discussed she was asked about court packing by Mike Pence, which is a serious issue because the courts are already diluted and attacked and assailed by the specters of political involvement. The courts are already being used by both parties as political tools. And so, if you were to pack the courts with more people of a particular ideology, what happens? The courts become further politicized and they get away from their intention, their original intention, their vision. Their vision of the courts is to respect the Constitution and enforce the principles of the Constitution, which are the principles of natural law, in any judicial decision that they have. That is the intent, the original intent of the Supreme Court. Kamala Harris and the progressives don't want that necessarily. And which is why when Kamala Harris was asked 2 or 3 times, does she want to pack the courts? She defaulted to saying, well, Donald Trump packed the courts with a bunch of white men because none of them were black. Which is simply an argument from identity, personally, which is a terrible argument, number one. Number two, it takes on a different context. Packing the courts means packing people with a particular political ideology, or more so in this sense, expanding the courts to pack people with those ideology. But being black or being white is not a political ideology. Being black or being white is a predisposition that we don't have any control over, an arbitrary characteristic. I mean, no one, even Michael Jackson, had any control over what they actually were ethnically. It's just a fact of life. It's a fact of being. It's a fact that you just deal with it. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's neutral. But unfortunately, identity has become such a locus for conversation, a locus for political currency in our society, that identity is automatically conflated with a good or bad thing, and that's not how it should be. It should be understood in respect of itself and in respect to the principles that it embodies, the underlying principles of existence. But unfortunately, that was not on play here. And so Kamala Harris saw it fit to throw a red herring, a complete and utter red herring, out of nowhere, to attack to divert from her intentions, or Biden's intentions, to stack the courts, to subvert a possible conservative majority. Again, it looks good. It sounds good. It was executed quite well. The most brilliant rhetoricians would have given Kamala Harris a clap for that. But the question is it good? Absolutely not, for the reasons I just explained. And so we have to understand, guys, this vice presidential debate highlights the differences between the dichotomy in American society, between images and substance. Oftentimes, people look at an image, look at the surface, and they will conclude the value of a particular thing because of how it looks. Conversely, some people will look at a substance and not pay any mind to the appearance and be blinded to that. You have to have a kind of both. But unfortunately, right now in American society, it is in vogue to look at appearances over substances. If I have a book here about Grover Cleveland, the title of the book looks pretty nice. It looks pretty, it seems pretty descriptive. But if I open up the book, and this book had several sentence fragments and so on and so forth, and it's a good read, but it could be executed much better. That's the substance of the book, what's inside of the book. This is the appearance. It looks very nice, but this tells you nothing about this. Very simple. So, I think that Americans need to, if they take anything away from tonight, it shouldn't be that, oh, Kamala did good, oh, Pence did good, or whatever. No. It should be that we have a fetish for what it looks like, as opposed to what it is. And that if we are a country that was founded upon the principle that what something is, at its very core root, is the ultimate fundamental value, that is what we should pursue over appearances. So, my friends, you can have whatever opinion you want on this debate, but just know that it sounded real good on both sides. But it wasn't all that good. It was a practice in rhetoric, a practice in sounding good, a practice in being proficient with the silver tongue, but not a practice in actually pursuing the truth. That's it, my friends. As always, I love all of you. Subscribe, like, comment, share this message. Get this message out so we can change and revitalize minds who are captured by the dichotomy of static thinking in the American mind. Share this as much as you can, wherever you can. But most importantly, my good friends, please stay pensive.